Hey, what's up? Welcome in to Under the Hood with Jonathan Hood. Thanks so much for downloading the podcast and checking us out on YouTube, youtube.com. Look for Under the Hood with Jonathan Hood. We're brought to you by Neighborhood Housing Services of Chicago. If you're ready to plant roots, have your own home, go through the lending process, the home buying process by going to nhschicago.org. Neighborhood Housing Services of Chicago. They've helped my family and they will help yours as well. Been a long time partner with us here on Under the Hood and on my ESPN Chicago talk shows. So make sure that you lock in with Neighborhood Housing Services of Chicago. If it's not for you, it could be for someone else that needs to be able to learn the home buying process and learn through Neighborhood Housing Services of Chicago. Get out of that stuffy loft, that overly expensive apartment, and check out Neighborhood Housing Services of Chicago. I hope you had a great weekend. Hope that everything is going well with you. We got a lot to talk about here on Under the Hood. Make sure that you're subscribing to everything we do on Under the Hood with Jonathan Hood. We should start off by talking about the Chicago Bears. Yes, the Bears. They played the Cincinnati Bengals this past Saturday. Had the pleasure of working with John Yurkovich, Yurko, 9 to noon on ESPN 1000 and on the ESPN Chicago app. And we did the post-game show. I was in for Peggy Kaczynski. And so I went back to my old roots, working on a Saturday night late until about 11:30, 11:45 at night, as we did a 2 hour plus post game talking about the Bears and their loss against the Cincinnati Bengals. So I want to start here by talking about the positives of the Chicago Bears team, and then we'll work our way to some of the question marks. There are many positives with the Chicago Bears team for 2026. I know last year was last year as the Bears were able to win the NFC North and go really far into the playoffs. But there's a lot of positives with this Bears team, starting with Caleb Williams, the quarterback for the Chicago Bears. Think about Caleb Williams and think about what he brings to the Chicago Bears team. There's leadership, he's learning, and he has not even at his best just as of yet, but you just know that he is climbing the ladder of being one of the better quarterbacks in the National Football League. He's got Luther Burden, and he's got Roma Dunze, and he's got Khalif Raymond and Jade Walker. He's got Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet, Sam Roush, the rookie. He's got so many weapons that he can be able to throw to, along with a potent running game with DeAndre Swift and Kalman Nungai when he returns. And there's Roshan Johnson, third stringer. He was pressed in the service as a starter against Cincinnati. He is running like he's going through his last carries with the Chicago Bears, meaning that he wants to hold on to a job. So he's running hard through those holes. It's good to see Roshan Johnson being upright, being healthy, and being able to run the football for the Bears. But my overarching point is that the Bears have a lot of momentum, a lot of things going for them this season on the offensive side of the football. On the defensive side of the football, the Bears also have some things going for them, like Jalen Johnson and Montez Sweat, and you've got TJ Edwards, Grady Jarrett. There's plenty to be able to like about this Chicago Bears team. I think that a lot of us are always focused on what the Bears don't have or what's questionable about the team, but think about it. It's one of the rare times with the Chicago Bears where there's actually more positives than question marks. Because usually in this spot at this time in late August, we're talking about, well, who's the quarterback going to be? It's a quarterback competition. It's quarterback one versus quarterback two. And who's the head coach going to be? Is the head coach going to be able to stay? Is he going to get fired this year? We're asking questions about the offensive coordinator, just ripping the offensive coordinator, that the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator needs to be fired. We're talking about what the Bears don't have. We're going after the McCaskies. There's always this other stuff that we usually would talk about at this time. But the positive is that the Chicago Bears have so much momentum on the field going that I believe that the positives outweigh the negatives with the Chicago Bears team. Now, there's some things that we need to address here with this Bears team, because even though the Chicago Bears won the NFC North last year, does that mean they win it this year? That's the hope. You hope that the Bears can be able to be in the playoffs or win the North again, because it's about time for the Bears to have some consistency. So my buddy Sylvie says he's tired of the pop-up championship. So I totally understand that. So let's just talk a little bit about what we saw here on Saturday night. One of the question marks is number 70. If you're watching on YouTube, and what you should take a look at number 70, and that's Braxton Jones. That's the left tackle for the Chicago Bears. And so on this play here against Cincinnati, and by the way, before we even go there, let me just say, we're talking about a Bears team that went with its starters, surprise, Caleb Williams out of nowhere, and the ones were playing in the game on Saturday. And I said, well, where did that come from? I thought we are just going to see a whole bunch of Case Keenum into Moss, the backup, and then that'll be in the ball game. No, for the first series, you saw Caleb Williams out there. And it was kind of like what we saw in the regular season, right? Last year, where you get to a certain level, you start to throw the ball, you run the football well, it's a really good drive, and then you just get stopped and stonewalled, and a 7 turns into a 3. It turns into field goals. And that's all you got from the Bears, quite frankly, in this game against Cincinnati. So, first of all, it was a surprise that Ben Johnson put Caleb Williams out there. I made the comment on Under the Hood. I said this on Cap and J Hood as well, weekday morning, 6 to 9 on ESPN 1000 on the ESPN Chicago app. I said, we don't see Caleb this preseason. I'm fine with it. It's one of the rare times that I've said that. But I thought, okay, well, I guess this is going to be okay. But Tyson Bagent had a hamstring injury. I went to practice last Tuesday and didn't see him out there. There was a lot of Case Keenum and a lot of Caleb. I said, where's Tyson Bagent? He's got a hamstring, so he did not play in the game on Saturday. So Caleb was out there. Then you saw the other two quarterbacks. But I want to go back and talk to you about one of the things that we've talked about already a lot this summer, and that is talking about the left tackle position for the Chicago Bears. Number 70, Braxton Jones. I had to be able to give context because, again, it's Caleb Williams, number 18, that's on the screen right there, the quarterback. And one of the issues in camp is trying to find out who the left tackle is going to be. There's supposed to be some help there on the left side to help Braxton Jones, but, here's the thing. He's a veteran. He should be able to block his guy, right? He should be able to block his guy, especially if you're taking on 2s and the 3s. He has a hard time holding his block there on what we just saw. And this is, again, against a backup. And Braxton Jones is there, and he's trying to hold on to number 96, and 96 just goes right past him as if he's not there. We saw a little bit too much of that in practice, where Braxton Jones had a hard time being able to hold on to the guy in front of him. Now, this play here in Cincinnati was not as egregious as some of the others that we saw. But the point is, though, is that the guy that we're seeing right now, number 70, more than likely is going to be the left tackle when the season starts, because this is what the Bears have. I mentioned at the time that I thought it was quite a surprise that Braxton Jones was even signed to a 1-year deal by Ryan Poles. I'm like, wait, he's coming back again? And there he was, a 1-year contract. And I think he's going to start. And the reason why Braxton Jones is going to start is because Ozzie Trapillo is not ready yet. Ozzie Trapillo is a miracle that he's out there after that devastating injury that he suffered, the surgery, everything else. And he's out there without a brace. I watched him. I'm like, look at this guy. It's a miracle that he's out there. It just shows you, man, modern medicine and a young athlete, they're just out there. And he's trying to get back to be healthy. Maybe he comes back week 3, week 4, who knows? But Braxton Jones is going to be the left tackle. And if I'm Braxton Jones with another lease on life, the opportunity to be able to go out there one more time and play the position, I'm doing all I can to make sure I hold on to the position, keep Trapillo's ass on the bench. But what you see from number 70, Braxton Jones, is the inability to hold on to the guy in front of him, to block the guy in front of him. And I know that for some this is minutia, but it's not, because it's about the protection of Caleb Williams. All this offensive line talk that we talk about, and primarily left tackle, because I think everything else is settled in the offensive line. The reason why that we talk about the left tackle position the last couple of years is because it's the blind spot of Caleb Williams. He needs to be able to have an iron gate in front of him, so that way he can get the ball out, or so he can run down the field to be able to get a first down. And so you just don't want 4 out of 5 guys being able to get the job done. You want 5 out of 5 guys to be able to hold their water, for them to block, for them to be able to make sure that Caleb Williams has a clean lane to be able to run, or for him to be able to have the opportunity to get the ball down the field. So that's why it's important. You want to have guys that can be able to make a difference. It's troublesome because the Bears don't have that guy just as of yet. So let's take a look here. Braxton Jones on the left side of the screen, and he's on this play. Again, this is against a 2 or a 3. There's no reason why that Braxton Jones on the left side of the screen cannot hold on and be able to block. I believe that's number 60 or 62. I'm watching the screen here, and it's just when the coaches look at this film of Braxton Jones and they say, wait, this is against the backups of the Bengals. How can you not hold the block long enough so Caleb Williams will be able to have a lane to be able to throw the football or to run? It is amazing. I mean, 62, I mean, he didn't get to Caleb Williams, but I mean, Braxton Jones still has to do a better job, obviously, of being able to hold the block long enough for Caleb Williams. And that's the whole point. Even though there's a lot of positives with this Bears team, those are things that you look at. By the way, Ben Johnson, a little pissy after the game. And, for you and I as Bears fans, we're looking at it, it's like, oh, it's preseason, right? You're working out the kinks, and you're trying to figure out who can play and who can't play for this team. Well, Ben Johnson's a maniac. And I think that you and I both know that. And so he looked at this game, and he was a little pissy after the game. I remember, we aired the post game on ESPN Chicago when I was hosting with Yerk, and he was somewhat curt on some questions, and was talking about a play in one of the, 9 plays for Caleb Williams, 10 plays. One of the things that he did not like, and that is Caleb Williams being able to connect to one of his receivers. Now, this play that I'm going to roll here was incomplete. Now, this pass that he was throwing, I believe this was to Loveland, and it was double covered and becomes incomplete, and that becomes a field goal, I believe, after this. And so was there a receiver open on the left side? Sure. There's a receiver open on the left side. But I think even with a more stronger throw by Caleb, I think he has the opportunity to complete that pass. So let's see if we can put this on here. Yeah, there it is. So Caleb Williams goes back to pass, and he's trying to connect to, I believe that's Loveland, at the 6-yard line. Now, there is an open receiver on the left side that could have been a 5-yard pass, but Caleb was going for it all, trying to get into the red zone. And so, okay, he throws there, he gives it a shot, and maybe a stronger, quicker throw. Maybe, just maybe, it's a completion. And Ben Johnson said in the press conference, he said, well, he could have made a better throw or something like that. It's funny because all the other questions to Ben Johnson, he goes, I got to watch the tape. The defense, got to watch the tape. What do you think of the running game? Got to watch the tape. But with Caleb, he just thought that was a pass that he should have been able to go in a different place. Who knows? All I know is that Ben Johnson is trying to keep Caleb Williams honest by talking about that one throw. The one throw of, again, 9 or 10 attempts by Caleb Williams while he was on the field for that first drive for the Chicago Bears. So I thought that was interesting. I want to talk a little bit more about Ben Johnson in this regard. Let's talk a little bit about Ben Johnson, because Ben Johnson, for some, just walks on water. Ben Johnson, head coach for the Chicago Bears, just walks on water because of how successful the team was last year. I just want to point something out to you about Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, he rules with an iron fist. He's very demanding. He wants the best for his players. All good for that. I mean, Ben Johnson and the way that he handles his players is great, because it tells the old Eberflus guys, whatever that bullshit was before I was here, that doesn't wash. The lack of accountability when Eberflus and the coaching staff was here, that doesn't wash. It's different. It's almost like the coaching staff had to be able to be a lot different than the previous one because the accountability wasn't there. Okay, but here's my overarching point about Ben Johnson and the coaching staff. So you had some taste of success. You had a little taste of success last year. And so I wonder what the messaging is for year 2. Because it's one thing to come into the door, kicking the door down, saying, this is what it's going to be. We're going to do it my way, good, better, best, all this stuff, right? But I wonder what this looks like in year 2 for Ben Johnson. Is there an improvement offensively for a guy that wants the Bears to score 38 points a game and be the most prolific offense that we've ever seen in the National Football League? What does that look like on the defensive side? What's Ben Johnson saying about the defense? How is he getting on the defense like he gets on the offense? Because you can't have an imbalance as a head coach. I understand that the Bears have their own defensive coordinator, but I would say that if you're Ben Johnson, you have to be a complete coach and you should be kicking the ass of the defense as well. Because if you're going to look at this roster, the one side of the football that really needs an ass kicking, whether it's rookies or veterans, is the defense to be able to make plays. The Bears can score 30 points a game. Sure, I see all these weapons on my yellow pad. I know on this depth chart on my iPad here. I see the depth chart. But what does that mean on the other side of the football? See, I still got a problem with the 49ers game in which the Bears should have won that game if you just would have made some stops. And so just to dump it in the lap of Coach Dennis, I don't think that that's good enough. I think you're a more complete head coach when you can be able to have that message going around the team, not just with the offense, not just in a room with Caleb Williams for 4 hours talking about how shitty he is and tearing him down and talking about all his mistakes. I know he's an OC at heart, but to be a complete head coach, you have to be in every room, offense, defense, and special teams. And that mission statement, whatever Ben Johnson's trying to say, whatever he's trying to get across, that has to be able to resonate with everybody in the room. Not just in a speech when you win or when you lose, but through the week. It's Dennis Allen's defense, sure, but don't forget Ben Johnson's the head coach. So that's why year 2 is interesting. All we talk about is like how Caleb got better, the offense was amazing, magical plays. But now in year 2, year 3, year 4 moving forward, Ben Johnson just can't be offensive genius, and that's Dennis's job on the defense. I want to see whether or not there's improvements with the defense because of Ben Johnson being the overall head coach for the Chicago Bears. Make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and comment to everything we do here on Under the Hood with Jonathan Hood. We are growing as a podcast and as a YouTube channel, so thank you so much for that. We've got so many new shows that are happening with Under the Hood with Jonathan Hood. I hope that you can continue to share the broadcast with everybody else. Deshaun Watson right now, if you're watching on YouTube, is on the screen, the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. He was named the number 1 quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. The reason why that this comes up here, and not Shedeur Sanders, it's Deshaun Watson. The reason why that this is a topic is, think about this, Bears fans. All the years of trying to figure out who the quarterback's going to be, who the head coach is going to be. This is not a question for the Chicago Bears, hopefully for the next decade plus. But Deshaun Watson in the last preseason game with Cleveland stood at the podium trying to fix his earring, putting his earring in his ear, and was asked, do you hear the booing from the Cleveland fans? Because Deshaun Watson was the backup in the preseason game as Shedeur Sanders started the game. He goes, I hear the boos, but the same people that booed me when I was hurt on this field. And he just talked about how the fans of Cleveland, I'm just paraphrasing, are not good fans because they booed him when he went off on a cart in the meat wagon. So Deshaun Watson was wrong for saying that about Cleveland fans. Now, on Monday, he went back and apologized for some of the things he said and just talked about how, I don't know if he said it was out of context, but he was out of pocket for saying what he said. But Deshaun Watson called out the Cleveland fans for booing him. And what I would say is that Deshaun Watson is being booed for a lot of reasons. And Deshaun tried to make it seem like, well, people know why people are booing me. And I hope it wasn't what I thought it was for. It's not for that. It's because you have 20 plus lawsuits that you had to settle with women at massage parlors or people that were trying to do a service for you, and you wanted more than just a massage on your back and your legs and your feet. You wanted to massage other places. And you had all these women coming out of the woodwork to sue you. And so that's why people boo you. That's why people are like, look at this freak. Look at this dude. What is he doing? Whether it is truth or not, there was money that was doled out to all of these women, these alleged victims, because of what Deshaun Watson allegedly did. 1 is too many. 20? That's crazy. It's a miracle, quite frankly, that he's still in the National Football League. After all that he's gone through, all the all of the lawsuits that he's had. But Deshaun Watson called out the fans of the Browns, and I just think that that was wrong. You know what Deshaun Watson needs to do now that he's named starter, is to be able to get back on track, to be able to help the Browns. This dude has such a smooth image out of Clemson. A lot of teams wanted him because he was a winner. He goes to Houston, clean image. When Dabo Swinney says this guy's got a Michael Jordan type reputation, I mean, that's pretty strong. That's strong praise. And he was. Deshaun Watson was a guy that had a lot of things going for him until he put on that Browns uniform. That's so crazy. So now look where he is right now. He's a starter, but Shedeur Sanders is right over his shoulder. Here's what I need you to understand, Deshaun Watson. Here's what I need you to understand. Stop getting on the Cleveland Browns fans. You say you go into the community, you get support there, but yet you turned a blind eye to Cleveland after the game on Saturday and just said, "Oh, these people booed me when I was hurt. They were booing me, they were cheering me that I was hurt." What I would say to Deshaun Watson is play football. That's it. Just play the game. Deshaun Watson needs to understand that the Browns need him. It's not like they got a whole, bunch of great personnel, but if nothing else, if he's upright, that's great. But he's still a creep. Never forget that. How about our baseball teams in Chicago, the Cubs and the White Sox? The Cubs lost 2 out of 3 against Seattle on the road, and the White Sox won 2 out of 3 against the Mets at the rate on the south side of Chicago. Let me start off first with the Chicago White Sox. So Luis Robert is back in town. And can I tell you, he tore up the White Sox. I was hoping that Luis Robert would not have a great time here in Chicago coming back to his old team because of what he said about the rate and how empty it is and all this other nonsense. And he goes to the Mets. And by the way, he goes to the Mets and has been hurt a lot with the Mets. Shocking. In other news, water is wet. Luis Robert being hurt, not a surprise. But like anything else, when Luis Robert is healthy, he's very effective. He's a terrific outfielder and a hell of an offensive weapon when he's healthy, when he's available. It's kind of like what Tom Thibodeau said about Derrick Rose. When healthy, he's great. But when he's not healthy, it's not great. Not great at all. But what I really loved is the White Sox and their resolve. The White Sox, and again, in walk-off fashion, again, being able to win against the Mets on Sunday. They win the series. And so this team is so intriguing and so much fun to watch. In a lousy, wide-open American League, the Sox can really do some damage. The positives for the White Sox is because you just don't know who the hero is going to be. Braden or Colson Montgomery. You don't know if it's going to be Murakami. You don't know if it's going to be Antonacci. I mean, who knows who's going to be able to come through? Randall Grichich off the bench. It could be anybody. It could be the Savannah Banana, who had the game-winning home run on Sunday. You just never know. It's just been so many unsung heroes like Jake Rogers, new to the team, hitting game-winning home run. Who knows? It's really been a lot of fun to watch this White Sox team because it's a bunch of young guys that are just playing loose and free, and it's fun. The question mark, though, about the White Sox is the starting pitching. Luis Castillo, since he's come over for the White Sox, has not been great. You traded for someone that's supposed to eat innings and supposed to give you some length in offensively, as a pitcher. And he just has not done that. The offense has been pretty brutal against Luis Castillo. He's thrown in plenty of pitches, but the walks and the amount of hits he surrenders, he has to realize he's in a playoff race here, and he's got to be able to get it done. I do want to make sure I give Sean Burke his flowers because he has really turned things around. He was deserving of the All-Star game, even more so than, like a Davis Martin. As of late, I mean, Sean Burke has been the guy. Davis Martin will be coming off the IL pretty soon. But I'd like to be able to talk about a guy that we never talk enough about, and that's Anthony Kay. Anthony Kay, one of the starters for the White Sox, has been able to just pitch well. That guy's in the rotation for the playoffs for me. He's the 6 at the bar that says, you can go home with me too. Why don't you go home with me? And the six is just set aside. Now I'll just look over the shoulder of the six and look at the 8 or 9 in the bar and try to take her home or try to take him home. Right. Anthony K just like, well, you know what? I can get the job done too. Anthony K has been very solid for the White Sox. I'm not saying great, but very solid. To the point where I think we overlook him because we're just wondering Sean Burke, Davis Martin, Luis Castillo, Urquidy, like what's going on? Starting pitching, as you know, is paramount for the White Sox. They've got to be able to get that right. I think from a bullpen standpoint, I think the Sox are set. Brazaban, not so great. But you know what? It doesn't deter me from having fun watching this team on the South Side. I can't wait to go back out there again. I was there for the lone Braves game that they played, in which they only had one hit, but still had a lot of fun at the ballpark because the pitching for the Sox was good enough for the Sox to be able to win, and they fell short in that game. So I look forward to going back out to the ballpark because this will be fun. A bunch of young guys out there in the forest. Like, wow, look at this forest, all these teams, and yet we're in first place. It's fun. It's fun to watch the White Sox, that is for sure. On the Cubs side of things, the Cubs are going to the playoffs themselves. I believe that the Chicago Cubs should be able to find a way to track down the Milwaukee Brewers. That means they got to play consistent, better baseball. There are no more excuses with the Cubs when it comes to pitching because from the pitching standpoint, now they've got a lot of arms. They got a plethora of arms now that they can go to. Shota Imanaga on Sunday pitched poorly, where Craig Counsell got off his ass and just like, I can't watch this anymore. We need to be able to win this game. And so he pulled Shota early. The thing about Shota, he keeps the ball up. He has the penchant to give up a lot of home runs. There's times where Shota is really solid, like against the White Sox. I think like 10 strikeouts in that game against the White Sox. But then he goes to Seattle and he laid an egg. He was not good. So the bullpen held up nicely. And, of course, the Cubs scored 19 runs in that game. So they were able to salvage the series. But it's about consistency, and there's no more excuses. Now, they've had their share of injuries early, and it's just amazing that the Cubs are in second place and have an opportunity to go to the playoffs. But the offense should carry them, and it starts with Pete Armstrong. Pete Armstrong, to me, is the MVP of the National League. So it starts with him. But then it's Bregman, and it's Ian Happ, and it's Suzuki. And you go down that lineup, and maybe nobody really scares you in the Cubs lineup besides PCA. But it doesn't mean that the Cubs can't be able to go far and be able to be carried by their offense. Like maybe some people are scared of Suzuki because it's strikeout or nothing. You don't know what you're getting. He can hit a fastball a long way. I watched him against Mizorowski in Milwaukee, and I'm just like, wow, he got a hold of one. He has the ability to do that, but sometimes he strikes out a lot too. But there's still guys in that lineup that keep the line moving for the Chicago Cubs. So, what I would say is that now you look at it and the strength is the pitching, in which it was a weakness in the first half of the season. Now, because everyone's coming back and healthier, now it's an opportunity for the Cubs to be able to get back on track. Pitching wise, they've got 7 guys they can go with to be able to start games. They're not like the White Sox where they need a reliever to start the game like a Sean Newcomb to hand it over to Fetty, to hand it over to someone else. The Cubs have a plethora of arms they can go with. So that's a positive in the right direction for them. So looking forward to this playoff race. It's so much fun. Can I just tell you about October? October is going to be so much fun. We're right in the midst of the Bears season. And then we have the Cubs and Sox both in the playoffs. Then we're going to get ready for the Caleb Wilson season with the Chicago Bulls to see what the young man can do for the Bulls. Patrick Kane's back in a Blackhawk sweater to play with Connor Bedard. Oh, man. College basketball, college football. This October is going to be so much fun. I cannot wait. So much to look forward to, which is great. Please leave your comments as we continue on and starting to wrap up here on Under the Hood with Jonathan Hood, brought to you by Neighborhood Housing Services of Chicago. If you're watching on YouTube, on the screen right now is Enes Kanter Freedom. Do you know who Enes Kanter is? Well, he used to play in the NBA. He was a journeyman NBA player. And he right now is donning a T-shirt that says woman, noun, adult, human, female. So somehow Enos Cantor came to Chicago to watch the Chicago Sky take on the Indiana Fever. That's a matchup that everyone wants to see. Anytime the Fever are in a city in the WNBA, you want to see it because Caitlin Clark's playing, and you want to see what the Fever do and see how the Sky, in this case, can measure up. Sky could not measure up. They lost against the Indiana Fever, but that's beside the point. Is the idea is that you go to Wintrust, people travel to come see Caitlin Clark in the Midwest. I'm sure people came out of the Chicagoland area and beyond to be able to see Clark at Wintrust. But Enos Cantor's there. And Enos Cantor has made the statement that he is going to go into the WNBA draft in 2027. And you say, Jay Hood, how's that? Enos Cantor, he played in the NBA. How could he play in the WNBA? Because Enos Cantor wants to be able to prove a point about men playing in women's sports. Enos Cantor wants to make sure that, hey, if men could play in women's sports, then I should just go in the WNBA. He's an idiot. He's an idiot. He's one of these guys that believes that, well, we got to make sure that we have no penis in the locker room with WNBA players. A man, you can't have a man with a penis, or you can't have a trans person in the women's locker room of the WNBA. As far as I know, and I haven't been in every locker room, but I watch the WNBA, there are no men or women that were formerly men that are playing in the WNBA. So why would he do this? My whole issue with Enos Cantor and Royce, the other guy that also is another man trying to get into the WNBA, trying to wear a wig and trying to get into the WNBA. My whole point is that why is this an issue in the WNBA? Why would Enos Cantor come to Chicago not to root on Caitlin Clark? He wasn't there to root on the Indiana Fever or just watch a good, hard-fought basketball game. No, he wanted to be seen. And my overarching point is that he's trying to take up a cause that's not there. It's the equivalent of having a picket line or being a one-man picket line saying, I don't like cats in hats. I think that we should ban hats on cats. The videos in your neighborhood, in your backyard, you know what? I'm going to ban it. And here's the thing. I haven't seen a cat wear a hat since Dr. Seuss. But I know people have their own beliefs, and because they just want to take up causes. This is not a cause. This is not something that's happening in the WNBA. And I just find it interesting that for a lot of men that I know, that I work with, that I have worked with, that they got no time for women's athletics, let alone the WNBA, because they believe women are less than. Let me just tell you about me. I'm someone who loves competition, loves watching competition. I love it in the pro level. I love it in the college level. I love it from a women's standpoint, from Little League baseball to Pee Wee football, high school, prep, whatever it is. I enjoy competition. I'm a sports fan. So I don't have room to be like, women. Who wants to see women's volleyball, even though they're filling up college football stadiums like the Savannah Bananas? They got time for women's basketball, even though Caitlin Clark and Asia Wilson and all these other women are shooting it from the moon, just like guys do. But I'm not telling you how to fan. I'm just telling you about me. I enjoy the competition. No one's got an anchor tied to your ass saying that you got to watch women's basketball or women's athletics. I know that some guys that I know have a problem with it because it's women. I don't get that personally, but you do you. Me, I'll just enjoy everything because I don't want to miss anything. I want to be able to know these stories and talk to you about these stories. But Enos Cantor, this guy is trying to make a point of saying, I'm going to go into the WNBA draft because, well, I guess the WNBA is allowing men or trans to be able to be in the league. I haven't seen that. So why is he doing this? I feel bad for the WNBA because it's run poorly by Kathy Engelbert, who is the commissioner of the WNBA, even though they've got a pretty good television deal. I think it's strange that I think their finals are on two different channels, two different networks. That doesn't make any sense. Who signed off on that? But the point is, though, is that they are They are seen in a lot more homes than it used to be. Besides ESPN, they're on Ion TV, they're on Prime. I think they have a number of places where people can be able to watch the WNBA. I feel bad for the league though, because you just can't allow these women to just grow the sport on their own. People want to come in and shit on it, like Enos Cantor and just like Royce White, whatever his name is, because, oh, we can't have men playing women's sports. What men are playing in the WNBA? Why use that league to be able to put your platform out there about that? It's stupid. So Enos Cantor, this idiot, really thought that he was doing something special. And by the way, the players that played in that game, they went after him because he was sitting courtside and he stood up and raised his big arms, and the women were triggered by it because, again, they don't like that he's there. Did he have a right to buy a ticket? Yeah, but he also put himself into the ball game by just stretching his arms out and smiling and trying to provoke those women. Why? What's the point? And so they were triggered by it. And so he was kicked out of the game, and rightfully so, because he wasn't there to enjoy the game. He was there to be able to make it about himself when it should have been about basketball. And I'll take it one step further about Caitlin Clark. I think Colin Cowherd said it best in a rant that he had not too long ago. So I'm just going to agree with him by saying that that Caitlin Clark, just use her for an example. And we use any women's basketball player for an example. We'll use Caitlin Clark. Why all of a sudden Caitlin Clark as a basketball player is political? Why is it political? Where one side of the aisle is trying to grab onto Caitlin Clark and say, yeah, she's about America and she's wholesome and pure. And this is Caitlin Clark just wants to play basketball. She's not trying to lean on one side or the other, but she's being pulled in directions for no reason. You know, the one thing about Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, how the two that really jumpstarted the league again before Michael Jordan took it over, it's like their friendship and their rivalry was not about politics. Well, Larry Bird's white, so he's got to be on this side of the aisle, and he needs to be here, and no. Magic Johnson's a black man from Michigan, so he's got to be on this side of the aisle. He's got to be able – they were just playing basketball. So what Colin was saying is let Caitlin Clark just play basketball. Why does it have to be one side of the aisle or the other? Why just let her play? So, Michael Jordan, man, he had it right. He goes, I'm not going to be on one side or the other because Republicans buy shoes too, just like Democrats. Famous quote by him. The point is that for those who are not politically inclined, don't make them politically inclined because it makes you comfortable. Just let them play sports. It's funny about how some talk about, shut up and dribble or just, stick to sports. You stick to sports only if it only suits your politics. You say stick to sports. If it doesn't suit your politics, then definitely stick to sports. But if it suits your political persuasion, bring that athlete in. Let that athlete talk about the politics that I like. It's stupid, man. The reason why that I do this and talk sports with you is because we're away from all that nonsense. You're not going to have me talking about politics, me talking about what's happening in the White House or talking about in Congress or talking about who's winning and losing an election under the hood. You won't. And the reason why is because we're here to talk sports. Bills piling up. There's people 25 minutes from where I am right now that still do not have power. And Gary and the surrounding areas, right? You know what they want? They just want to get away from their bills and their problems and family issues and finances and the job and the family and the dog barking at you and the cow and the cat meowing at you. They just want to be able to get some time away from their problems. And so that's why on this platform, and I try to do that as much as possible on the radio show that I do, is pretty much 100% of what we do on the radio show because we don't delve in those things, is because we all have issues. We all got problems, big or small. And our focus should be on sports. So what I find interesting is that those that just need Caitlin Clark to come over this side of the aisle because and we got to defend her because she represents the Indiana Fever and a basketball player, just like any other player that's playing in the league. It's just weird to me. This guy is a jackass. Just needed to be seen. And fans outside in Chicago at the Wintrust Arena were heckling him. Like, what are you doing here? You're not here for the league. You're just here to be seen. That'd be the last I'm talking about that guy. Enos Cantor, Freedom. We're brought to you by Neighborhood Housing Services of Chicago. This is not political. This is a statement of helping you be able to find your next home. Neighborhood Housing Services of Chicago, nhschicago.org. Don't forget, we've got so much more programming here at Under the Hood with Jonathan Hood, including the Audible with Mike Pendleton. That'll be pretty soon, coming up on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We will be able to talk more Bears, more NFL, and so much more. Make sure you keep it locked. Hope that you've enjoyed our show here for Under the Hood Monday. Subscribe, comment, say everything we do on Under the Hood with Jonathan Hood. Oh, God! So long, everybody. So long. Oh, God.